Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and there's been quite some discussion as of late regarding the rookies that we currently have in the CDL for 2021, and whether some of our pro players, the veteran pros that have been around for many years at this point, are trying to gatekeep to some degree some of these pro players out of the league so they don't get their spot replaced. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you were new as always, I greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. First of all, wanted to mention this from Novas, analyst over at Los Angeles Thieves, also helping massively with the stats side of Breaking Point. If you guys would like to get involved with helping out some of the stats stuff, then feel free to DM Novas. I'll leave a link to all the good stuff down below. But yeah, a lot of discussion always about, okay, how can I get involved with Breaking Point? Maybe how can I, like, you know, help out in esports or get a foot in the door in some way? This is maybe an opportunity. Send Novas a DM if you're interested in helping out with the stats pages over at Breaking Point, which are pretty spectacular if I do say so myself. This comes out from Chrome yesterday as well, kind of confirming what we did discuss yesterday. The casters won't be at the stadium for Major 4. They'll be working from home. I just hope that they, I don't know if they will be able to do this, right? But, you know, remote working can be absolutely fine if the production is done very well. But we have really seen with the CDL and also, well, with other esports, for example, the fact that they don't really seem to have too many issues a lot of the time actually figuring things out to make sure there are no delays, because we generally see that the casters are always like a second or so ahead of the actual game. Like, you'll hear Miles or whatever. I think Miles maybe especially, I don't know exactly what's going on there. Always, obviously not his fault, right? It's production stuff, but you know, he'll say something about like someone killing someone, and then you'll actually see it transpire half a second or a second later, which is somewhat frustrating, obviously. Now, I was hoping maybe on LAN that would be easier to resolve, but it seems like they're still going to be working from home, so potentially still some issues. At the same time, like, I guess this is a trial run. They just want to make sure it all goes well and that no one gets sick or anything, which is obviously what we want to see. So hopefully everything goes well. If this reduces the risk that anything does go wrong, that means they have to cancel off Stage 5 and Champs lands, then well, hopefully that will not happen by any means. This is what I wanted to mainly talk about. This came up from Naked a few days ago regarding, he's the owner of Mindfreak, but he talks about, I've been around esports since 2008, and I can tell you without doubt, if you were destined for greatness, you have no gatekeeper. The only person you can ever blame is yourself for not being in the shoes you want to walk in. Great statement, to be honest, really interesting one. However, does it necessarily apply to Call of Duty esports, right? Because we've seen many players over the years that some of the veterans of the scene have a lot of sway, because the way these teams are built, the pros on the team, especially the veterans, make a lot of decisions as to who exactly they pick up. And with a pretty limited selection of players in the league, there's a lot of players who have been picked up this season that have proved to be absolutely phenomenal talents. However, in past seasons, and maybe this season as well, you've got some players that are maybe deliberately, and we talk about it quite a lot, and we've just heard it talked about on the flank, most certainly, the fact that players, like, you know, spread dirt on players' names behind the scenes, in A-calls and such, so that maybe those players don't end up getting picked up to the teams that potentially they actually deserve a spot on. They generally get there eventually, but certainly you could well argue that a lot of these pro players are quite deliberately, maybe if you've been around a few years, there's only 48 spots in the league, and you're in a pretty tough spot actually maintaining your spots. If you might, you know, maybe you just say a few things about this player that people are talking about behind the scenes that might potentially take your spot, but you talk about with the other pro players the fact that, yeah, they're an airhead, or they don't really understand what they're doing, or they're, you know, just got gun skill, or maybe they're online and they don't have any LAN experience, or this type of stuff. You spread this type of stuff behind the scenes, then that actually reduces the chance that player comes in and gets your spot. So I can understand why that might be the case. And we saw Crimsix and Clayster, I think, talk about it last season, the fact that a lot of players are just playing for stats so that they can maintain their spots over some of these younger guys that potentially are coming up. And of course, the younger guys that are coming up have done so many great things so far this season, especially in previous seasons as well. This really has been the season of the rookie. And how much is that down to the fact that, you know, for example, these players have not played on LAN this season, right? So there's always that discussion. We're finally going to get that resolved here in just a couple of days' time. This comes up from Standy, though, I thought was pretty funny. There was like a CDL video that came out right here, and I think it's from Kenny and the guys over at Los Angeles Thieves. They almost choke a game, and he talks about how they always played that like Minnesota Rokkr because they kind of almost choked this one away. But Standy was one of the players that's discussed. We'll look at it in the flank here in just 1 second, saying that, yeah, okay, a lot of people have been talking about Standy for years, but most of the pro players thought this guy was just an idiot, right? He was just all gun skill, like he had no brain on him, he never made any correct plays, and that was the discussion that went on behind the scenes. Similar things talked about with Dashy back in the day, similar things talked about with Cellium, and of course these players now considered to be some of the best players that Call of Duty has to offer, whereas a lot of maybe the veteran players were for several years saying that these guys actually are not up to scratch.
I'm actually surprised they went with Minnesota, because I know a lot of people, a lot of the pros were not a fan of Standy. especially in MW. I was a fan of Standy, and every time I talked to professional players about Standy, they were not a fan. They personally did not
Tom,
think...
what have we talked about before with pro players? They're really going to play in the game, but sometimes the talent evaluation is not there. You and I have talked about a conversation I had with some pro players.
Well, I think that might be a little bit of an egotistical thing, an arrogance
thing.
Was there a reason why they didn't?
They thought he was an idiot. They thought he was an idiot, just like how I was an idiot.
Because Tommy got the same thing. People roasted Priestahh. The reason we were able to pick up Priestahh in World War II is because his ex-teammates soiled his name. The same thing happened to Dashy after his
Priestahh was the biggest example, and so was Dashy.
And there were people, Tom, after that first year, after the first couple events in Black Ops 4, that thought that Cellium wasn't very good.
Oh yeah, that was another crazy one.
I mean, those pro players anonymous, like we want to expose.
I picked up Cellium and I got roasted. Whenever I joined the TeamSpeak late night, people be like, "Dude, like that kid sucks. Like that kid actually sucks." I'd be like, "What are you talking about? This kid's nasty." You're like, "Nah, you may I don't know what doing." Every single time. Bro, there'll be times where I beat people call me stupid and I'll beat them the next week at an event. I drop 40 on their head and smoke them. And then I join the TeamSpeak and I hear them calling me stupid again. And I'm like, it just never ends. Like the whole stigma never ends, right? Some players are stupid. Some players are slow. Some players are, baiters and this and that. The list goes on. Everybody always has those stigmas, and I think that was just the problem with Standy. People just thought he was an airhead.
So I think to some degree you can see it right here. This I thought was pretty crazy. Top 5 players in each game mode at the present time. In Hardpoint, you've got Hydra, Dashy, Skies, Insight, and Simp. So think about this top 5 and think about how many of these players were on the scene a couple of years ago. The veteran players pretty much nowhere to be seen. I think this is ridiculous from Hydra. Like, he's been in the team a few months now, and he has a 1.3 in Hardpoint. Like, what is... I don't know how he's even this good. It's pretty crazy to see. Dashy at a 1.16. We heard him talked about there as well. The fact that a few years ago people thought, okay, this guy's brain dead, or people talking trash or whatever. And clearly he's been a great player since he's joined the scene. Skies has been around a few years as well, but not too long at this point, to be honest. Simp only joined the scene technically in Black Ops 4 when he turned 18. And Insight is a new rookie this season. And Insight, you'll see his name a fair bit right here, especially in Search and Destroy 1.24. I do find it funny as well how one of the only veterans on this list is Scump, right, who is somehow blossomed into some sort of Search and Destroy star in the latter half of his career. I think he was great in Search as well last year, but back in the day, Search and Destroy didn't tend to be his best game mode. He used to put up crazy numbers in the respawns, but now he's dropping a 1.22 in Search this season, which is honestly remarkable. Inside at 1.24. aBeZy, I mean, he really only came on the scene in World War II times as well. Priestahh was certainly talked about in that clip as well. The fact that, yeah, people thought this guy, he's not actually that good at all, and why are you picking him up? And this is why I do wonder. You look at some of the teams that are being built at the present time, and you think, wow, those players, are they some of those players, right, that don't like these avatar guys coming up and taking their spots, or don't want to take a chance on them? Because you see a lot of the teams that are successful are the ones that actually, very commonly and very successfully bring up the younger talent into the scene. aBeZy was one of those players back in World War II. He was playing on Enigma 6 at the time, then into Black Ops 4, he manages to get an opportunity on a United and wins the World Championship, right? So teams that are willing to take chances on these younger talents tend to be the ones that actually revolutionize their squads. And there's so many teams right now that I don't think are particularly willing to do that, maybe because they're controlled by veteran players. You could well argue that if you are willing to do that as an organization, you can really, reap great rewards. And in Control as well, Simpson at 1.26. I mean, that's just outrageous. This actually is kind of funny, right? You look at the Control, every single member of FaZe is in the Control right here. Dashy has a 1.15. But outside of that, the top 5 are Simp, Cellium, Arcitys, and aBeZy. That is scary to say the least in that game mode. This I thought was pretty interesting as well that Chrome came out with a few days ago. 6 times this season, a player has dropped 20,000 damage in a best of 5 so far this season. Pretty remarkable to see. Priestahh has done it 3 times. TJHaLy has the highest damage in a series as of late, with a victory against Surge way back in the early days of the season. Then Max up here as well, most certainly. Priestahh done it 3 times, which is pretty ridiculous. Of course, you'd much rather have like 12,000 damage, but win a 3-0 stomping than have to, drop 21,000 damage to win or lose a series, because this one right here, of course, he lost to Envoy, dropping 20k damage, and Paulex did it just the other day to the subliners, dropping 20k damage for the loss. So unfortunate for him, most certainly. These I also thought were some really interesting statistics from round 11 stats regarding how teams actually get over the line. Now, this has changed up a little bit since then. We know that Ravens are now 1 in 7 in their Search and Destroy round 11 record, but this is when it comes down to a clutch situation, which teams get over the line successfully. And some teams are very good at it. We can see up at the top here, Empire, for example, are particularly good, at least in the hard point. Well, maybe not so also how much hardpoint they're already 4-3. But in Search and Destroy, they win pretty much all of their round 11. So this is if a hardpoint's within 30 points. If a Search and Destroy goes to round 11, if a Control goes to round 5, how often do they win those? And you generally see the top teams, for example, Ultra, especially good at this. Sublime is also especially good in, well, at least hardpoint, for example, 8-3. When the game does come down to the wire, at least as of when these stats were made, you generally see that. That makes a large part of the difference, right? We see the top teams usually getting over the line when it's a close situation, but down at the bottom here, when it comes down to the wire, for example, in hardpoint, Gorillas are 1-8 when the hardpoint is within 30 points, and you can see Control, for example, for Surge and Legion when it goes round 5, also very tough spot that they find themselves in statistically. So interesting to see how maybe some of the difference between the top teams and the worst is not necessarily pure skill, because the skill differential in the CDL is obviously significant, but it's not huge, right? These are the best, top 1% of the 1% of the 1% of best Call of Duty players in the world, but it's those who can actually get over the line when it matters in the end. These were some of the statistics I'm pretty sure we talked about earlier today. 62,000 odd peak viewers. OpTic, of course, have something to say about that most certainly. Hopefully this major back on LAN will be pretty exciting, especially if some of these big teams make a big run. This I thought was interesting as well, just to finish off the video with. This comes out from Crone talking about the odds, of course, of these teams winning. Atlanta FaZe actually, by far and away the favourites, then Ultra, then OpTic Chicago, quite interestingly, and well, down here at the bottom at least, this is as of yesterday, Los Angeles Gorillas 2001 to 1 to win the entire thing, which is kind of funny how far they are behind Ravens and Surge in theory. Now this has changed up, I'm pretty sure, after the fact, but I thought it was kind of funny how, Silly replies saying, including 3 other teams with the same or less wins than us. That is just disrespectful to say we are, this much, worse of a chance, I suppose, and a massive underdog, even compared to something like Seattle or London or Ravens. Just Crimsix have now changed things, so they're now kind of online, but still, Los Angeles Gorillas, by far and away, the least likely team to win this entire thing. But still, I'm pretty sure if you chuck a couple of quid on them, you're probably going to just be throwing your money down the drain. This I thought I'd finish off the video with as well. This I thought was pretty remarkable. It was the OpTic guys when they did the listening and the Control just a few days ago. We talk about OpTic comps being pretty phenomenal, and here they are once again, I think, to great effect. It's just interesting to hear what they had to say during this match against Los Angeles Thieves, when they felt super confident, and when they're on form like this, they are going to be a tough team to match most certainly. But intrigued to hear your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. Really upset the YouTube algorithm that you enjoyed this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always. Take care, and I will see you next time.
This is the swing map right here, man. We win this, bro. We're blowing them out of Moscow. I promise you. I promise you, dude. I got a weird feeling you're about to destroy this map for some reason.
I'm about to be finessing, though.
I'll be can absolutely not be dead. No, play. Kylie, left flank.
Play dead.
Nice,
Let's 2B. Grab, get A with me.
I'm on. Double flank. In plane. Left flank again. Flasher in plane.
Oh my
God!
I'm on a 5.
Yo, he's front wood.
I'm looking at your front tower. No one.
I'm in gents.
Front tower. I'm pushing.
Okay, listen. 3 in their base. One group. Front tower. Stack it with. I'm gonna stack it with Brendan.
Yo, watch top tower. Watch out. I need help at A.
I'm absolutely playing.
I'm trying to watch across. You one's in wood on me.
I have your push. You're your midpoint.
Yo, I'm 12.
They're setting down. I'm staying live.
Watch bottom plane, Brendan.
Got it.
It could be top lane.
One on the Kenny. Front tower.
We're missing someone.
No, yeah.
Their step's dead. I'm one off.
I'll get
Kylie. Nice. I'm still in P5. I'm close to streaks.
We're missing.
No missing.
I'm playing my streaks, bro.
Stack.
Yo, watch our 3 down. Watch our.
Yo, one this one back wood. 2 back wood. One's front tower.
I sit down.
Right? Kenny dead.
I'm one off streaks.
Nice.
What
Watch your right.
Both gens.
Stay down.
Both P5.
They're pushing me.
Both P5. Nice.
Let's go there. Nice.
I'm one off.
Oh man,
Let's
we're
go.
shitting on these guys.
Yo, I'm one off streaks.
Yeah. Same.
These guys, bro.
Yo, listen. Put him in the biggest blender right here. Let's make this the quickest control yet. Let's go.
Let's go.